me ask you something before we begin, friend. Pull up a chair. Who are you still angry at? Not the little stuff, the slow driver, the rude clerk. I mean the real wound. The betrayal you still turn over at 2 in the morning. The person who took something from you that they had no right to take. And if you're honest, really honest, you can feel what carrying it has done to you. How it's made you a little harder, a little smaller, a little less alive than you used to be. Tonight, I want to tell you about a man who was handed the single greatest excuse for bitterness the world has ever known, and what he chose to do with it instead. His name was Nelson Mandela. He wrote it all down in a book called Long Walk to Freedom, and I read every page. Now stay with me, because his story carries 5 quiet truths I want you to catch along the way. You'll see that the person who hates is the one who's really locked up. You'll learn the strange trick he used to keep his heart soft. How to hate the wrong without hating the people who did it. You'll watch him find a flicker of good in the cruelest man in the whole prison. You'll see why he refused to let revenge become his fuel. And in the end, you'll learn that hate is something we are taught, which means it is something we can lay back down. Come on now, let me tell you. Mandela was no saint, and he would be the first to tell you so. He was a young lawyer, a fighter, a man who stood up against one of the cruelest systems the modern world ever built: apartheid. A system where the color of your skin decided every single thing about your life. Where you could live, who you could love, whether you were a person at all. He fought it with everything he had, and the government made him pay. They sent him to prison. And friend, not for a year, not for 5, for 27 years. Sit with that number. He went in a strong man in his 40s. He came out an old man near 70. While he sat in that cell, his children grew up without a father. His marriage cracked under the weight of it. His mother died, and then his eldest son died. And they would not let him out to bury either one. Out on a windswept rock called Robben Island, they set him to breaking stone in a blazing white lime quarry, day after day, until the glare did permanent damage to his eyes. They took his freedom. They took his family. They took the prime of his life. And they took his very name and handed him a number instead. You want to talk about a man with the right to be bitter? There has never been a better case in all of human history. Every reason on God's earth to walk out of that place with his fists clenched and his heart full of poison. But here is where the whole story turns. And it is so quiet that you could almost miss it. Somewhere in those long gray years, Mandela worked out a thing that most of us never figure out in a lifetime. He decided he would aim his anger very, very carefully. He would hate the system, that whole machine of cruelty built to crush his people. But he would not let himself hate the men. Not the guards, not the jailers, not even the people in whose name it was all being done. Listen to how he said it, in his own words, on the very day he walked free. "My anger toward whites decreased," he wrote, "but my hatred for the system grew." And then this: "I loved even my enemies, while I hated the system that turned us against one another." Now sit with how hard that is. Because bitterness is a lazy thing, friend. It can't be bothered to sort the wrongdoer from the wrong. It just sprays in every direction and calls everybody guilty. Mandela refused that. He understood something they don't teach you in any school. Hating the people who hurt you is like swallowing poison and waiting for them to fall ill. It never, ever works. The only one who gets sick is you. So he kept his fire for the machine, and he kept his heart for the men. And I know exactly what you're thinking. That sounds awful pretty on paper, but could a real man actually live it with a real boot on his neck year after year? Here is your answer. There was a commandant who took over that island, a colonel named Badenhorst. By Mandela's own account, he was the most callous and barbaric commander they ever had, and he set out to earn the name. He was the first commander who wouldn't even meet with Mandela. He just refused. Then he went to work. Every small comfort those men had spent years quietly winning, he stripped back. He brought in hand-picked young guards whose whole job, Mandela wrote, was to harass and demoralize them. Cells were ransacked and books carried off. Meals stopped with no warning. Family visits, the one thing a prisoner lives for, canceled, no reason given. To every request, the answer was always no. And the cruelest cut. With one stroke of his pen, he took the men's hard-won right to study, knocking them all back down a rung, for no reason on earth but that he could. For years, this man made their lives a grinding misery. So if any soul alive had earned Nelson Mandela's hatred, it was Colonel Badenhorst. Then one day, word came that Badenhorst was being transferred off the island. And before he left, he called Mandela into the office. This hard, cruel man looked at him and said, and I am quoting now, "I just want to wish you people good luck." Mandela was stunned. For just one moment, the brute had let something show underneath. Something human. And here is what Mandela took away from it. He wrote that all men, even the most seemingly cold-blooded, have a core of decency. Badenhorst, he decided, had not been born a monster. His inhumanity had been foisted upon him by an inhuman system. He behaved like a brute because he was rewarded for brutish behavior. Do you see what he did there? Even his worst jailer, he refused to write off as evil. He saw a man bent crooked by an evil machine. And once you can see that, once you can find the human being standing underneath even your enemy, the hatred has nowhere left to stand. Because here is the secret at the very heart of this story, friend. Mandela understood that the man who hates is not the powerful one in the room. He is the prisoner. As Mandela wrote it, a man who takes away another's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. Think hard on that. The jailer, eaten alive by his hate, he is in a cell too. One with no walls you can see, no bars, and no release date. And the saddest part of all, he locked himself in, and he is holding the only key. That is why Mandela would not pick up revenge, no matter how the world around him begged him to. He had watched bitterness rot good men from the inside, comrades who let jealousy and revenge become their compass and lost their way completely. He was not about to spend the freedom he had waited 27 years for, still chained to the very people who had taken it. They even tried to tempt him with it. Late in those years, the government offered him a deal. Walk free now. Just stay quiet. Just accept their conditions. And this man, after decades in a cell, looked at that offer and said no, because it wasn't real freedom. Only free men can negotiate, he said. Prisoners cannot enter into contracts. He would not trade the true thing for a counterfeit, not even to save his own body. So when they finally did open that gate, Mandela walked out, and he did not walk out smaller. He walked out larger than he went in. He led his wounded country not into the bloodbath the whole world was bracing for, but toward forgiveness. He became its president because he understood that real freedom was never just about getting through the door. To be free, he wrote, is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. Now let me stop and ask you straight, friend, right there where you're sitting. That grudge you have been carrying, that person you cannot forgive. I want you to think about it, honest as you can. Who is it really imprisoning? Them or you? I would truly love to hear about it down in the comments. Because here is what Long Walk to Freedom taught this old man, and I will carry it to my grave. Mandela looked back on all of it, the cruelty, the wasted years, the men who had done it to him. And he arrived at a conclusion so simple that a child could hold it in two hands. No one is born hating another person, he wrote. And if hate has to be learned, then, friend, it can be unlearned. People must learn to hate, he said. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. He never once lost faith in that. Even in the grimmest stretches inside, he said, he would catch a glimpse of humanity in one of the guards, just a flicker, just for a second, and it was enough to keep him going. Because, in his own beautiful words, man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden, but never extinguished. So here is my hope for you tonight. Whatever has been done to you, and I do not say this lightly, do not you spend one more year locked inside a cell that the other person stopped thinking about long ago. Aim your fire at the wrong if you must, but set the people down, set the bitterness down, and walk out larger than you went in. If this old story has stirred something in you, do me a kindness, give it a like and subscribe, so you can come and sit a spell with me again real soon. And go on and find that book, Long Walk to Freedom, by Nelson Mandela. It is a big one, but oh, it is worth every single step. You take good care of that heart of yours now, you hear? I'll be right here.